I want to talk about one example of business as mission, and that is Hobby Lobby, the arts and crafts retailer. Here you can see a picture of the founder, David Green. So we're going to start with talking about the organization's history. It was started in Oklahoma City in 1970. David Green began by assembling picture frames and paying his kids to help him assemble picture frames in his garage. Green and his wife Barbara took out a $600 loan to start the operation. 2 years later, they opened their very first store. Here is a picture from their website of their commitments. This is like their brand promise. They aim to honor the Lord in everything they do, offer their customers exceptional selection and value, serve employees and employees' families, and then provide a return on the family's investment by sharing the Lord's blessings with their employees. So, Steve Green, son of the founder, said in an interview that it would not be consistent for them to live in a way at home and then operate their business differently. That's inconsistent with their faith. So that's the reason why they have this Christian background and founding story. Let's look at some of the organizational facts. It is a for profit company. It's privately owned. It is the largest privately owned craft retailer in the US and the third biggest overall behind Michaels and Joann Fabrics. It's headquartered in Oklahoma City, where it started. Today, there are over 900 stores, over 43,000 employees, stores in 47 states, and over 70,000 products offered. Sales data, there's not a lot of sales data out there because they are a private company, and that means they don't have to publicly disclose their finances to stakeholders because they don't have a lot of stakeholders. But they had $5.3 billion in sales for the fiscal year of 2019, and the fiscal information for 2020 is just not up yet. They did have a birth control controversy. So, the Affordable Care Act meant that employers had to provide birth control as part of their health insurance coverage. Churches and houses of worship were exempt, Christian owned companies were not. So, in 2012, Hobby Lobby filed a lawsuit in their home state of Oklahoma, said it violated their First Amendment rights. It was appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court, and then ultimately, Burwell versus Hobby Lobby became a landmark decision. So, that means it sets a precedent, and the court ruled 5-4 that Hobby Lobby did not have to provide access to these two types of contraceptives that they felt destroyed fertilized embryos. Let's look at the faith integration, the intentionality, inherent, internal, and external integration. So when we look at our KROI, Kingdom Return on Impact, that's a question of why do they do the things that they do. So the big reason why for Hobby Lobby is strengthening families of employees. And they are the business as mission, camp. So their core values that we looked at earlier, the biggest way that we see this is when they close on Sundays for worship, and it states that, as you can see in this image, it states that on their store hours that they close on Sundays to allow their employees to have time to worship and time with family. And they also close at 8 p.m. to allow their employees to be able to put their children to bed at night. The leaders are still the Green family, and they are all committed to maintaining the Christian foundations. Their inherent integration, their product mix is arts and craft supplies, decor furniture, books, DVDs, and they have some other products as well. And these reflect their biblical values because you can see that they offer Christian books and DVDs. They support Christian companies. They have Bible activities. You can see that in this image. It's a He is Risen Easter activity, and they have an entire Easter section. They could leverage this by making some donations of Bible crafts and activities to youth centers, Operation Christmas Child, VBSs around the world. Here are some pictures of their different products. We've got Bibles, Christian DVDs. This is Rooted Soul, a Christian company. They have a ton of accent cross options. Dayspring has Christian cards, Christian devotionals, Christian calendars, and this is some Christian home decor. So their internal integration, the faith-based practices that are really notable are Sundays off and boldness in sharing the gospel. David Green, the founder, said in an interview that he takes a bold approach to sharing the gospel. They don't hire people based on their religion. That's illegal. but they definitely don't, forbid people from talking about religion in the workplace because it is a big part of your life. And they're really intentional in their employee treatment. They recently raised their minimum wage for full-time staff to $17 an hour. That is over double the federal minimum wage, and that shows that how much they value their employees. I interviewed a friend of mine that works there, and I asked him how he can see their Christian values, and he said the managers are really understanding. You can go to them with questions, problems, and you know that you're going to get biblical advice, and there's a really strong sense of community among employees. Externally, they make donations to charities. They can't donate to everyone, but they do specifically support One Hope, Every Home for Christ, Oral Roberts University, Museum of the Bible, and YouVersion. So the founder said now that they don't have debt, it allows them to give more. That's a big part of their approach, is not being in debt. And since they are not a nonprofit, that they are able to donate up to half of their profits. And so they donate to these various ministries that basically are all aimed to making the Bible more accessible to people around the world. They have a 10% discount for churches, schools, and charities. And they also had an advertisement for Christmas and Easter that they started running. And they promoted a faith hotline there so that people could call this hotline in Dallas and get spiritual questions answered. In terms of conclusions and business as mission's bottom lines, you can see their financial bottom line in that they aim to bless their employees with their rewards, right? They're not just collecting wealth to pass down to the next generation. They continue to raise the minimum wage. Socially, they institute programs to help strengthen the families of their employees. They have done Dave Ramsey finance classes for their employees. They've done anger management lessons at schools. Those are some of the ways they give back to the community. Environmentally, they're really committed to recycling cardboard specifically, and that is because they believe that it is our Christian duty to be good stewards of the resources that we have. And, you can see how those three bottom lines all fall into the kingdom bottom line because their brand promise is to honor the Lord in everything that they do. I would say they constitute good business and good missions. Their sales records speak for themselves, but additionally, they're a good mission because they really have demonstrated that they are okay with standing up for Christ and they're not going to backpedal or try to minimize their intentions and their Christian foundations and beliefs. They would belong in business as mission rooms 1 and 3 because they are, monocultural in the sense that it's operating in America only, but they still reach unreached people groups because of immigration and globalization. There's plenty of unreached people groups in America. So they have a core customer base that probably support them because they are a Christian company, but they also have people that just enjoy crafts. My recommendations, we're going to talk about some kingdom impact opportunities and quote. So their inherent kingdom impact opportunities would be donating educational Christian crafts to underserved groups and creating contextualized materials for different ages and different cultures that don't have access to Bible crafts and Bible activities and Bible literature that makes sense to them culturally. Internally, they could implement a marketplace ministry. I did not find any evidence of that. And they could also offer some childcare options for employees, since that's something they value a lot is their employees. Especially with the pandemic, a lot of people lost their childcare. Externally, I think it would benefit them to decrease the amount of products made in China, the human rights violations that China is culpable in, and their current genocide against the Uyghurs could really damage Hobby Lobby's witness to Muslims, and take a more concrete missions approach so that people could say, oh, Hobby Lobby, supports this scholarship, or Hobby Lobby built this hospital, this park, as opposed to they donate to these organizations. This is the quote I chose for Hobby Lobby, and that is because it would really help to strengthen the resolve of the Green family and other Hobby Lobby leaders and employees, because this reinforces that idea that you don't need to have a secular business. You can be religious in your business approach because it's a big part of who you are. And this is the quote that stood out to me. And that's because I think it applies to not just business, but all areas of life. But specifically in business, it's really easy to take your focus off God and put it on that financial bottom line and, justify it. But in reality, we need to remember to honor God with our successes.